Had some trouble with the YouTube access.
Oh,
Somebody hacked my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Silicon Valley's waiting on electronics.
I know, yeah. All right, good evening. Thanks for your patience. Let's call to order the Charter Review Committee meeting of April 3rd at 5:06 p.m. The city does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. Sunnyvale prides itself on the rich diversity of our residents. We are committed to creating a culture of belonging where members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. This Charter Review Committee is considered a limited public forum, which means the committee can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments must be limited to the agenda item being considered by the committee for the consent calendar or public hearing items. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within the committee's authority, generally referred to as within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction. If a speaker's comments are not related to an agenda item, the presiding officer will rule the speaker out of order. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of a disagreement with the content of their speech. Location and online meeting details are available on the Charter Review Committee's agenda. Scan the QR code on screen or click the language access and translation link on the committee agenda to read and listen along in more than 60 different languages. Use the Show Captions button to view captions on Zoom. Comments on matters not on the agenda or presentation item must be submitted prior to the time I call the item for oral communications. Comments on agenda items must be submitted prior to the time I close the public hearing on the agenda item. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to the time period set by public comments for the agenda item, which will be strictly enforced. Guidelines are posted on the city's website and on the Charter Review Committee meeting agenda. First up, please join me in the salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, clerk, can we please have the roll call?
Yes, members, please request to speak. Chair Larson, Vice Chair Wickham,
Present.
Member Wee,
Present.
Member Vickery,
Present.
Member Newswanger,
Present.
Member Davis, Member Rubino, Member Olafson,
Present.
Member Pine, Member Philly.
Present.
7 present with Chair Larson and members Davis and Pine absent.
All right, thank you. We did receive notice ahead of time, so Chair Larson and committee members Davis and Pine absences are excused absences for today. All right, this is now the public's opportunity to address the committee on topics not listed on tonight's agenda. This section is limited to 15 minutes and may be extended or continued after the public hearings or general business section of the meeting. Individuals may only speak once during oral communications. The Charter Review Committee meeting is a limited public forum, and the committee can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction. If a speaker's comments are outside the committee's subject matter jurisdiction, I may rule the speaker out of order. This allows the committee to conduct its business at a reasonably efficient manner and protects the rights of other speakers. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of disagreement with the content of their speech. Please submit a speaker card to the clerk, raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. The clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on oral communications?
Yes, Vice Chair, we have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
And it's also disappointing that you don't have a full complement. I do invite each of you to go watch the March 18th council meeting and judge for yourselves what occurred at that meeting. But once again, I hope you're all able to make each of the meetings, and you'll go through with the number of people you do have very well. We trust you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the last in-person speaker wishing to speak under oral communications.
All right, thank you. Are there any remote participants wishing to speak on oral communications?
Yes, Vice Chair. First up, we have Mei Ling. Mei Ling, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. My name is Mei Ling Stephen. Thank you so much for volunteering your time. First, I wonder if you would consider adding the Charter Review Committee to the Charter. I cannot find the CRC in the Charter, and I cannot even find where it is specified in the municipal codes, specifications such as eligibility, operation, and how vacancies are filled. Next, I feel odd when I look at the long list in agenda number 2. So setting priorities is most important. It seems to me that revising the charter may well be a multi-election endeavor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the final remote speaker. My apologies. We have someone who's just raised their hand. Bob, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee. Bob? You should see a pop-up asking you to unmute yourself.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do. You
Okay.
have 3 minutes.
Okay, I just want to bring up the fact that voting is always expensive. I'll just run over some numbers which cost Santa Clara County to do an election. And the one I'm talking about was the 2022 primary and general election. And the 2022 primary election, the billable cost was $6,372,226, and the non-billable cost was $16,043,953 for a total of $22,416,117 for the primary election. Now, for the general election, the billable cost was $12,212,601, and the non-billable cost was $27,479,132 for a total of $39,691,733. So the total for the total election for the 22 election was $62,107,912. Now that's because of the way the voting has been going for quite a while now, which is and actually they instituted the Dominion machines back in 2019, but, and having said that, the voting has gotten quite expensive when you mail out everybody a ballot and you don't clean up the voter rolls and just mail out people that are supposed to have a ballot. And it just, you know, that type of stuff gets very expensive. And the other thing is the way we used to have elections, I don't want to date myself, but I can remember when we held elections on on election day, you went to your primary, you voted, you signed your name, and you showed your driver's license before you voted. You got a ballot, you went into a booth, you marked it, and then you.
Thank you for your comment.
Well, I just want to say that.
All right, clerk, are there any other speakers wishing to speak on oral communications remotely?
That is the final remote speaker wishing to speak under oral communications, Vice Chair.
All right, thank you. I will go ahead and close the oral communications. Next up, we have the consent calendar. I'll go ahead and open the public comment on consent calendar item. Please submit a speaker card and raise your digital hand now or dial *9 on your telephone to indicate you wish to speak. City Clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. City Clerk, do we have any in-person participants wishing to speak on oral communications?
Yes, Vice Chair. We have Steve S. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
I'd like to commend the city clerk's office for making a very nice minutes here. And thank you very much for recognizing the suggestion I had for section 606G. We'll talk more about that in the future. There are 2 things that I do have a comment about minute meetings in general is that it would be very, very helpful to stay on top so that we have the previous meeting's minutes being covered in the following minute. And I understand there's an effort or it takes people to do that. But I think it's extremely important that we have that. We're missing the March meeting here to be reviewed, and I think it absolutely should be here. The other thing is, I understand, and I've talked to the city clerk about this before, about the reasoning for this, but when you're referring to people who are making comments, please use the gender neutral methodology that we've talked about earlier in meetings, I think in the first meeting. City attorney did a very good job in, I think it was measure F3, did very good non-thing there. Using they is unnatural. It also is a bit offensive in some arenas. So I think when you're doing it, you can put Joe said this, Joe said that, Joe said that. There are also other methods, but I think the word they is inappropriate to put in here. So I would ask that this group, as well as the city clerk, look at that so that we can get more to that gender neutral methodology that the city attorney so expertly did for a measure F3. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other in the room speakers on the consent calendar?
No, Vice Chair.
Do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on the consent calendar?
No, we do not, Vice Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll close the public comment. Now ask for a motion from my colleagues. Committee Member Olafson.
We approve the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
On second.
Thank you, Committee Member Rubino. All right, any discussion or advocacy on the motion? Seeing none, City Clerk, please conduct the roll call vote.
Members, please request to speak.
Sorry, Committee Member Vickery? Committee Member Wee?
Yes.
Committee Member Newswanger?
I abstain because I was not here.
Committee Member Rubino? Committee Member Olafson?
Yes.
Yes, for myself.
The motion carries 6. Oh,
That's me.
Committee Member
sorry.
Philly?
I wasn't here, so I'll abstain.
Thank you.
So the motion carries 4-0-2 with committee members Newswanger and Philly abstaining, and Chair Larson, Member Pine, and Member Davis absent.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to our next item, which is 25-0382. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'll be brief with this. We were trying to put together a framework for you, sort of organized framework for you to get to the point in June of having your meeting with the City Council to discuss issues that you're interested in studying. The report is organized in 3 sections. The first section is issues directed by the City Council that they wrote a colleagues memo that they describing issues that they wanted this committee to study. The second issue is items provided by staff, which staff has just in the course of kind of general business, staff has identified as potential useful changes to the city charter. And then the third issue is items that you identified in your last 2 meetings as you went through the charter section by section. Your discussion in the March meetings covered all 3 of those topics. And so what we tried to do is incorporate all of your discussion as well as the input from council and the input we received from staff. So this report hopefully captures kind of all of the key elements of your discussion and the other issues that people are interested in having you study. Our suggestion for how the committee moves forward with discussing these topics to kind of get to this list for the council meeting with the council in June is that we take each of those 3 issues one by one and take public comment on each of those 3 items. And that you look at the issues identified in each of the items A, B, and C. Identify whether you might want to drop any of those issues. And then with anything left over, potentially identify whether it's a high, medium, or low priority. And we can come back to you in future meetings with kind of a consolidated list that again captures your comments. And what we can do is we can take informal polls. So you're not taking final action on anything tonight at this meeting, but just to help kind of move you forward in the discussion of the different issues and your priorities and interests and things to study, if that makes sense. And I can take questions on that suggested process if it doesn't.
Any committee members have questions? I'll ask one, which is just, and I think I know the answer, but there's nothing that prevents us from adding an additional item to this list in the future. Yeah.
Nothing that prevents you from adding anything. Again, you know, the idea of having informal polls at this point in time is to help kind of shape and narrow that list, but it won't bind you to anything in the future. We would have a meeting before your meeting with the council where you actually vote on a final list. So you're not committed to anything. This was just a suggestion to kind of help shape your discussion and set kind of priorities so that you can to help identify your priorities at this point. So it's a lot of, some are quite meaty topics as well. So how it felt a little bit unwieldy without having a process like that. So that's our suggestion.
If I could just add something else to, again, the purpose of sort of narrowing the list is that when we do have the joint meeting with the city council, we would have the opportunity for the committee to have really discussed sort of which items are prioritized at a high level, and also being able to get a lot of community input between now and the council meeting, so that we can also take sort of the public input, how it ties into the committee and how it whittles down to. And the idea is to come to this committee to have sort of a recommendation for council. That doesn't mean that you would still be tied into that, because you could make changes based on council's feedback at the June 3rd meeting, and as you continue your work on this issue.
Right, thank you. Any other committee member questions? Committee member Vickery.
Am I on? Yes, thanks. One of the things that I've been struggling with is, as we look back at votes on measures that have been on the ballot, including the last one that failed, I'm not sure what our role is in determining how changes should be packaged, if I can use that word, in order to make them accessible to the electorate, in order for the electorate to understand them and have input and then vote. And from some of the materials I looked through where you told us about the past actions, I can't tell whether those failed, and I don't think anybody can, because of one particular item or the other. So I guess my question is that a decision for the council? I mean, ultimately, I know the council has to decide to put anything on the ballot, but should we be thinking about how proposed changes would be packaged, whether there are ones that are, such hot topics that we know if we put that in there, it's likely to kill everything else? I mean, I don't have a handle on what our role is in thinking about that issue.
If I may respond, that would be sort of a step 2. But one of the things that, based on council's direction, which items, one of the things that we could also do, and we have recommended from staff's perspective to council, is that we could do some polling based on some issues. So that will provide some guidance, to your point, as to how some items might be, packaged or presented, and get the input from the community early on. But that's after we sort of get down through the list as to which items we want to focus on.
And so you did mention step 2, and I would presume that means after that initial meeting with council, and they give guidance at that point.
That's correct.
All right, committee member Wee.
Thank you. Question regarding polling, would that be using the standard Sunnyvale survey process that we had, like for the Hollenbeck study that recently went through? Would that be that kind of poll?
There would be different ways to do it. We've hired actually professional polling companies that actually did polling for the measures that we put on the ballot this past year. So there's informal, there's different methods that we could use. And that would be something that, again, based on budget, based on issues, sort of step 2, once we sort of get through that first hurdle as to which items we really want to roll up our sleeves on and work on.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a really important way to get feedback early rather than late. And second question, one of the members of the public raised a question about the Charter Review Committee, if that should actually be mentioned in the charter. Is that something that actually needs to be mentioned anywhere, or is that, it wasn't in the municipal code, I guess it wasn't in our charter itself. Should we actually mention how we go about making changes to the charter someplace?
Well, so there's a provision in the charter that allows the city council to set up other boards and commissions. And so this has been one of the topics that the committee's discussed a little bit, is which board and commission should be listed in the charter and which should not. So the charter doesn't require the Charter Review Commission to be in the charter because we have a provision that allows the council to set up other boards and commissions.
Thank you for that.
Committee member Rubino.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, sometimes it's better not to mention it and to give the right of the city council or other parts of the city to have ad hoc committees, and that way you don't have to list them. Because there may be some like this one that's not very frequent. Whereas if you do the planning commission, that's there all the time. So I think that it gives the city far more flexibility just to list the most important ones and then outline the council's ability or the rest of the city to figure out how ad hoc committees work.
Okay.
Thanks.
Committee Member Olafson, a question.
Yes, I'm having a little difficulty, just the charter as a whole, in that some of the items there seem to be better handled as an ordinance rather than the constitution of how we run our city. And I'd like to, as we go through this, get a better clarification. Things like how much you pay people is like the city council is written in stone as a constitutional item, when other pay schedules are an ordinance. They just the council just authorized a new pay salary schedule a couple of weeks ago. So I'd like to get more clarification from the attorney as to how you feel that should happen. I don't want to be spinning our wheels here and trying to change the charter so that we cover everything when we say, no, that should go as an ordinance, leaving it to the city council and the city staff to put that together to make sense as operations change. So as we go forward, I'd like everybody to keep that in mind, because I think as member Davis pointed out, some of the surrounding cities have a 1 or 2 liner where we have a 1 or 2 page statement on how the city is run. So, okay, that's my point. Thank you.
Right, Committee Member Wee.
Thank you. Let's see. So tonight we don't actually, you have the recommendations to decide to drop any items on list below or label items high, medium, low priority. I haven't done enough processing to figure any of that out yet. And I'm wondering if that should be an assignment for our little subcommittees to go off and do our rankings. So we can have really intense discussions of those among a smaller group, so we can just sort of freeform it more. And then come back to the next meeting with our different groups recommending, and then we can actually come to a decision then. And also when we get input on these, I think you mentioned doing, well, so first of all, I'd like to know if that's a reasonable approach from staff. Does that sound, do we have enough time to do that process and have the ranking happen next time? Or do we actually need to have a ranking or initial ranking this time around at this meeting?
You don't necessarily have to have the ranking in this meeting. The only thing that from staff's perspective, we recommended starting the ranking and whittling down the list. Because when you do look at the calendar as to when we are meeting with council, right, it's just trying to be realistic. And the reason why, we formatted and presented these items in that manner is that, to see if there is just a quick straw poll, right? Just to kind of get a pulse for the community, the community as a whole, to see which items you may want to, you put them on the list because you're doing a very comprehensive review the last couple of meetings that we've had. Do you still feel that now that you've looked at the entire comprehensive list and sort of start in your mind prioritizing, right? So this is just a check-in to see where the committee is currently at.
And as far as getting public input, I don't know, as a person in the public, I might find it difficult to group these as A, B, or C. I might want to just bring up the first item and just see if we have any comments on that. So we can get all the comments related to that item clustered together and then proceed to the next. Even though there's more items, that would be easier from, I think, a public response perspective and for us to grok what's happening, just to have it condensed on each topic rather than having it these A, B, and C groupings. That's a question. Is that an option for us? Or what do other people think?
I think the ABC groupings were just to, we'll have public comment and on, for example, the A grouping first.
Yes.
And that is in the agenda as, the first 10 items or something. So we could hear all public comment related to the first 10 items at a time and then move on to the B and then the C. All right, committee member Vickery.
I think this is along the same line as Member Wee's comment, but I really appreciate all the work that the staff has done. We received these materials only a few days ago. It included a rather robust resource list that I made some effort to try to consult. I honestly, tonight, don't feel that I know enough about any of these issues to express an opinion about their relative importance. I need to know more. I need to have more discussion. I need to hear from other members. I need to hear from the public in order to express an opinion about a priority on any of these.
All right, any other questions before we move to public hearing? Yes, committee member Rubino.
I don't know if this is relevant, but I still don't think we figured out what we don't know and what needs to be in the charter that's not there. And that to me is possibly more important than knowing what we know. Because I don't, it's like I would, what I would like is for the city, big ask, what are other cities putting into their charters, like within the last 5 years, that maybe we should consider? Because I really have no concept of what else we should add. And the only thing I can think of is emergency procedures in case the government falls apart, which might happen. But, because I really don't know what, it's like, I remember when Reagan got shot, someone stood up and said, I can't remember the guy that wanted to take over the government. He said, we don't know what we don't know. And it's true, we don't. So that's a biggie for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that certainly, staff has said we may come with additional recommendations at our next meeting. As well, the subcommittees in their work can also research that topic and figure out what might be missing. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yes, committee member Rubino.
Is it possible to find out or what measures have been on ballots for the last couple cycles for other cities on charters?
So there's 400 and something, cities or counties, I forget, in the state. So it's a pretty broad. So if you do want a little bit of research, we might be able to help, but it's a pretty time intensive task. So if you give us some criteria, size.
Well, if we did equal size cities, Hayward's about our size, Pasadena's about our size.
We can, depending on the committee as a whole, if this is
Okay.
a topic that they want to add to the list and might need a little bit of staff support, we can figure out exactly what the ask might be after the entire committee provides the direction.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other questions before we move to the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this particular item and specifically the first 10 items that were proposed by council. And we'll have separate times for the public on the different topics. All right, please submit a speaker card to the city clerk, raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate that you wish to speak. City clerk will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. And speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Clerk, are there any in-person participants wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Vice Chair. First, we have Robert, followed by Liang. Robert, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hello? Correct me if I'm wrong, but Sunnyvale removed ranked choice voting from the charter just recently. Now we're wanting to put it back. When the previous council already reviewed it and rejected it. Other than the council, what has changed? Well, what we do know is there are a lot of big dollar lobbyists pushing really hard to implement ranked choice voting statewide, nationwide, countywide. And we do see donations from these lobbyists to the campaigns of the county board of supervisors. That's on record. Present company excluded, I hope. Is this something we need to worry about in Sunnyvale? That's all I need. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others wishing to speak on this item in the room?
We have various speaker cards, Vice Chair.
Okay.
I'll go through them.
Thank you.
Liang, followed by Alice. Liang, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Dear committees, my name is Liang. I'm a resident, Sunnyvale, and I'm a constituent, okay, a U.S. citizen, right? So today I come here just for the item, regarding section 601. I would like to make a proposal. Please oppose, because there's no need to change the electoral system, especially not ranked choice voting. Any change will cost the city a lot of money, so there's no need to change it. It's a waste of money. Okay? So, and another thing is about Article X, and my recommendation, to you is please oppose, because in the 2024 elections, voters already rejected Measure F, so which eliminated the citizenship requirements for serving on city boards and commissions. So why is the city, brings it up again? So I hope the committee and the city listen to the people, of the Sunnyvale. All right. So that's my recommendation.
All right. Thank you.
Next, we have Alice, followed by Steve. Alice, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi. So for me as well, I was surprised to hear the board is discussing ranked choice voting. Even though Sunnyvale's previous city council already reviewed this topic and decided to remove from your charter not too long ago. So asking for, the priority, and that's a question, where did this come from, right? We discovered in Santa Clara County, the main driver of wanting to switch to use ranked choice voting come from well-funded national lobbyist group, not from people in Sunnyvale or in Santa Clara County. So my question is that, is this what Sunnyvale is about too? Right? And that's why I noticing, one of the member were talking about repackaging, just like your number 7. Okay, Measure F, it's already been voted and people have spoken. And I was shocked to come back to the agenda again. It's like a deja vu all over again. It's as if you did not want to accept what people have said, right? And choose to say, oh, maybe we just have to say it differently, then you will pass. I don't think that's what people want. And I believe that that's not the best way to spend the sports time. I believe there are a lot of issues that Sunnyvale need to be dealt with. It's a matter of moving forward, not keep rehashing the old topic over and over again. And just for, and then as far as ranked choice voting is concerned, it's well documented based on Oakland and San Francisco's experience using ranked choice voting, that they unfairly suppress minority and less affluent member of the community's vote due to its complexity. So that's a big concern, right? And it's not cheap. it takes, I mean, even though they've been spending big dollar to educate voters for 14 years, and majority of them still struggle to vote using ranked choice ballot correctly without their ballot being prematurely exhausted or thrown out. Okay, so these are the things that I really want this board to consider. Okay, and then most of the winner never really got over 50% of the votes from all the people that voted. That's what you have now. So I don't know what you're trying to solve, right? It seems like what you need is that Sunnyvale doesn't need ranked choice voting. What Sunnyvale need is a top 2 runoff to ensure every winner has over 50% of the vote from the voter. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve, followed by Brian. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you so much for breaking it into ABC. I don't have to speak like a fast auctioneer. To start with your ranking that you're going to do, high, medium, low, I think that's really good. It's only a start. I have 8 categories on here for ranking already. Okay, I could put more, but there's already 8 of them on here and I've already started to rank. So you might want to rank beyond that. In section A, let's look at here, the council election method. I think that's good to study. That's contrary to a few other people that commented here, but I'd like to know more. Maybe there's a version of something different that would work and be fair. Also, maybe it could solve some of those problems I've spoken about twice to this body before, is that my opinion, we are at no more than 50% successful in what we've done with district elections. How they've rolled out, how people have moved into elections, how they've broken the election law and finances, trying to game the system. Okay, maybe we need a way that gets rid of that. Also gets rid of the gerrymandering that occurred in the redistricting that was done. Please give me a call and we'll talk about that gerrymandering. Okay, so I think good to study. Council compensation, good to study. I think that's great. Vacancies, I would ask you to make sure to put in 606G, which I have requested, and I also fought vehemently for in 2018, to revise that only 1 appointee is allowed before you shall hold an election. That's very, very important. There's another part you're looking at, feasible in November. I think I'd like to know a little bit more about that. But we don't do things just for money. And we also don't want to bring back the cronyism that we've had many instances in the past. And that's why we changed in 2018 of quitting a few months before getting a crony appointed. Okay. The redistricting, yeah, definitely that needs improvement on there. Regular meetings, slam dunk, no big deal. Go ahead and do it. Number 7, citizenship. I think the voters have already spoken, so I would recommend that you drop that. It's ill-advised to bring that up again. And the last one you've got here is gender language. I think we've already talked about how if we were starting from scratch, city attorney did a very good job of being gender neutral without doing all the weird and crazy things, but we're not starting from scratch. So if you look at the section near the end, I forget, it's section 18, 1800C. 1800 is very adequate. It's been used for many, many, many years, and we're not starting from scratch. So I would recommend you also drop that it's really not worth spending $200,000 on a ballot measure for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Brian, followed by Hannah. Brian, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Great, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for your service. I know it's not easy coming here all the time and doing the work. And I'd like to recognize my colleagues that have been election observers for the last 4 years, and we're here to speak out against ranked choice voting, which I hope I can get your attention here, but it's a risky technology. And in case you didn't hear me, ranked choice voting is a very risky technology. And the reason I say that, Steve, I hate to tell you this, but there's not 8 different options. With the Dominion system in Santa Clara County, there are 270,000 different options, 270,000 different settings which they haven't tested all of those, each one of those. But here's the great news. If you don't like the outcome, you can change the settings and you can get a different outcome. Just like that. And it actually happened in Alameda County in the city of Oakland. And you know what the horrible part of that story is? Because this is such a complicated technology, their registrar of voters, who was the former chief information officer there, a techie guy. They want to rip his head off. They want to throw him out. This poor guy was doing his job, implementing complicated technology, and something got messed up. One of those 270,000 different settings didn't get set right, and now they want this guy out of office. Incredible. And the reason why I say that is because the proponents, Canyon Snow Consulting and the county's Citizens Advisory Commission on Elections, they're not telling you the truth. Canyon Snow Consulting is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars lobbying our county. 66 visits with our Board of Supervisors, who has a lot more important things to do. It's ridiculous. And there's going to be some filings with the Fair Political Practices Commissions because we've followed the money. And we've seen what Otto Lee has been doing. Excuse me, Gail, but I saw you at a meeting in December of 2023 here in Sunnyvale to talk about ranked choice voting. And what did Otto Lee do? He brought in the lobbyists to run that show, and they wouldn't take any word of anybody that was opposed to ranked choice voting. It was those lobbyists that are giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to assembly members and to our Board of Supervisors. It's disgraceful. No on ranked choice voting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Hannah. Hannah, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Hannah. I'm a U.S. citizen and a proud resident of Sunnyvale. Actually, this is my first time to join this kind of meeting, and very thankful to Brian. Very educated, a lot of information. A lot of them that's my first time. I know of that. So I don't have all this background knowledges as Brian, but so I'm gonna speak just based on my common sense. So I'm here to voice my opposition to two proposed changes. One is Session 601. So this one, well, I think there are a lot of better ways to use the money. Why we need to change the election system to the ranked one? I have a lot of questions. And this changing, first of all, isn't necessary and would come at a huge cost to the city. We need probably need a new machine. I'm not sure about that, but voter education and staff training, and all this money can be put into good use, okay, for the school, for the education, for the needed people in the city. And secondly, on the Article X. So I oppose removing the citizenship and voter eligibility requirements. Well, it's just common sense, okay? And I think Sunnyvale voters already spoke loud and clear in November 2024. We rejected Measure F by a landslide 62%, saying no to this already. So it's frustrating that this is even coming back to the table so soon after the vote. Why? Any reason? Can you give me any reason? Why? And can you tell me who even bring up this change? I want to know. I want to know why this person or those person rejected to hear people's voice. As a resident, I'm asking you to listen to us, the people who live here and pay the bills. Look at this beautiful building. I'm very happy for you guys. You guys can work in this kind of environment, okay? And this proposals feels like solutions looking for problems. And they don't reflect what Sunnyvale needs. And I thank you for your time and consideration, I hope you will prioritize the community's voice in your recommendation to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the final speaker card for this agenda item.
All right, thank you. Are there any remote participants wishing to speak?
Yes, Vice Chair. First up, we have Mei Ling, followed by Cindy. Mei Ling, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
My file shown. I think I'll start talking because the file was sent to the CRC members before that. Okay.
Yes,
On council directed issues.
Mei
Oh,
Ling,
sorry.
I'm sorry, let me grab your file.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mei Ling, I'll interject when you have 30 seconds.
Okay. Only 30 seconds? I'm sorry. Okay. Council directed issues on 601. Can an example or examples be shown to show that there's a real problem with the present voting system? And actually, in my heart, I think this should be dropped because, as people have pointed out, it's political consultants who want us to believe that it will lead to more democracy. Okay, Section 606. Would this benefit Sunnyvale residents? Is there any study showing that the majority of voters want council appointees to be on the council for a longer time before competing in an election? 605, I have questions as well. Are there studies by city staff or agencies providing data on the rates of compensation in city councils in the Bay Area? I think it would be most helpful to have data. Okay, Section 604. My questions are, would a full-time mayor position discourage capable candidates who want to serve without putting their professional careers on hold? Would a full-time mayor wield more power over district council members or change our council manager government? On Article 6, X, I have to disclose that I was against Measure F because of the removal of citizenship requirement in the charter specified committees. But I'm taking a step back, and it's reasonable to have discussions again. But in the end, if you put this on a ballot, the result might still be the same. I don't know. And I have a question. Should present and former charter board commission members be contacted for inputs, at least regarding 4A? And actually regarding the removal of citizenship requirement as well, because they have most experience with what they need on their jobs.
I'm sorry, Mei Ling, you have 25 seconds.
Okay. On 8, the editorial change was unfortunately bundled in the same ballot as removing citizenship voter requirements for charter boards and commissions. And on city staff issues, I think there should be a cap to be updated to greater than $50,000. On 603, by the CRC.
3 minutes.
Mei
Ling, you've
yes.
received your 3 minutes.
Okay, anyway, yeah, you can read it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cindy, followed by Sarah. Cindy, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. So this is my first time joining the commission, and so the commission meeting, and I'm very thrilled by the commission member. It's very humbly talking about they need more time to understand a lot of issue. And today I especially want to talk about the number one, about the ranked choice voting. And I highly recommend the commission member, you should request a registrar of voter to provide you the Dominion ranked choice voting profile. And they will have a detail tell you what this ranked choice voting profile in the Dominion election system. So you will know the method is complicated. Just like Brian just mentioned, the combination is 267,000 combination, and the result will follow in, and that's will change the election result. So that means we have a 276,000 different ways to count your vote. Is that really what Sunnyvale people want to, or even Santa Clara County that citizen want to? And I highly recommend request the profile so you can study. And I can just let you know, the very first option they give it is the method. And only the method, they have a 3 method for you to choose. The first one is instant runoff. And the second one is single transferable voting, which implement fractional surplus transfer of elected candidates. The third is points instant runoff voting. The declaration of the winner is done based on points, not votes. Do you believe that? There's more. And so it's hard for me to tell you everything. And so that's why the combination is 276,000 different combination to count your vote. And that means there's a 270,000 possible different voting result in one race. So I really don't think that we need to circle back to what Sunnyvale citizen already say no to the ranked choice voting and to come back to talk about it. And the second one I would like to talk about it is the item 7. And the same thing, the citizen requirement for the commission. And I really don't think that we need to bring back this issue, because council member, I believe you know you are the representative, not the salesperson. No matter how they repackaging the things, if the voter don't want it, you should take it and you should respect it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sarah, followed by Chi. Sarah, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for serving city of Sunnyvale. And I have a couple of comments to make. So on item number 1, section 601, my position is very similar to all the other speakers before me. I think, we have San Francisco and Oakland who used ranked choice voting, and a lot of voters say it is so confusing, and you have to know like all of the candidates and rank order all of them and not miss anyone. And the result is very undeterministic until the very last minute. And I think that, the money and effort could be used better in like how to actually increase the voter turnout, how to make people aware of all the, issues and don't get hung up on that ranked choice voting, and especially look at who is behind it. I don't think, it is time and money worth spending. And then on item number 4, the mayor, is it number 4? The mayor, 4-time mayor. Yeah. I think all of the cities are not, around us are not full-time mayors. There are, our mayor is just like another city council member. And if we change this to the full-time mayor, I don't know what, there will be a lot of things that gets changed. And I am not sure, what is the benefits that we're going to get out of this? And we are not a very big city. And then lastly, on item number 7, Article X, and like again, like a lot of people have said, this was on the November ballot, and no vote was more than 60%, I think almost 2/3. That speaks volume on what the voter wants. I think this should just be dropped. I know a lot of people voted no because of the citizen requirement. Not, don't use the excuse of because I combined 3 items in one ballot. Maybe they wanted this, not that, right? I think people have spoken very strongly against it. Just drop it. And I believe we have enough qualified candidates who are citizens. I don't see why we have to change the charter for that. And since I have time on item number 8, I personally is okay with like changing the language, but I am not sure it is money well spent on just changing the language for everything people should understand.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
Next, we have Shi, followed by Jen. Shi, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee. Shi, you should see a pop-up on your screen requesting that you unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I also wanted to comment on item number 7 and also ranked choice voting. Right. We don't understand why this item number 7 is back on the agenda again. I mean, the voters had voted out, rejected in the last election. The voice was made loud and strong and heard by the council. We want the citizenship requirements for serving on city boards and commissions. This is common sense. I mean, we don't want people who have not pledged allegiance to our country to make decisions in our government for the people. That's not right. And the word repackaging is very scary. I mean, is the city trying to go against the voters' will and try to sneak it back in? I mean, we hope not, but that's kind of like what looks like. Okay, next is ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is not a runoff and nor an instant. That's what, aside from what people are trying to sell this. Ranked choice voting takes rounds and rounds to calculate and recalculate votes. The votes are not calculated with non-transparent computer algorithms and configurations that can be easily manipulated until a candidate reaches a fake majority. It's not a true majority because you have to throw out votes and shrink the population of the voters to make the denominator smaller and smaller. That's how you get to so-called majority. If you peel the onions of ranked choice voting, that's what you will find out. And it's not instant either, because RCV is prone to more undervotes and overvotes. And as our county manually adjudicate these votes, it will take longer and costs more to complete manual adjudication on top of the current month-long process. The ranked choice voting could take weeks more to process these rounds of vote calculations by each rank to achieve a we call it manipulated majority. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jen. Jen, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I thank this commission for being present here to listen to our comments. I have some comments, as did the other speakers, regarding the problems with ranked choice voting specifically. First, I'd like to mention that there is complexity associated with ranked choice voting. And when I personally vote, and I've spoken to a lot of other voters, typically people have one choice. So they choose on a ballot who the candidate would be. And under ranked choice voting, what could happen is that if that candidate ends up as the first, but doesn't get a majority, they could end up as not being the candidate who is higher, who is elected, basically. Which means that if you vote for one candidate and you voted for that top candidate, but they didn't get 50%, your vote is basically potentially thrown out if you didn't vote for other candidates. And that I take as kind of almost a personal affront, because even with district elections, I used to vote for every single council member. And in the last 3 elections, I believe I've only been able to vote twice, and that happens to be mayor. And I find that as an affront to my voting capability. I have always voted. I pride in voting, and I find this as an additional attack on my voting ability. So let's look at some other aspects here. I've examined and watched a recount at the Registrar of Voting when a vote was even. And there was so much complexity there. I can't even imagine what would happen if there had to be some sort of recount for ranked choice voting. It is simply too complex to have any sort of recounts that would be of any value. And I say that from experience in watching prior recounts. Also, voters already distrust the system, and I think this would add to that distrust. The other 2 items that I wanted to comment on have to do with Measure F, which was 7 and 8 from Section A. The voters already answered that question on both of those proposals. And even if it was combined, I think it was very clear that that was a losing proposal. It lost with the majority of the vote. I think those 2 items should be removed out. Items 7 and 8, which are the citizenship for commissions and the gender neutrality. Those should not even be considered any further. They were voted down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the final remote speaker wishing to speak.
All right, thank you. So am I correct? I don't close the public hearing. I leave it open for the next round after we have a discussion among the committee. All right, so are there any committee members wishing to speak on any of the prioritization of the items that we were just talking about that council has recommended, or a discussion about dropping any of the items? Committee member Newswanger.
Excuse me. We're going to be studying, not making decisions at this point. And we've been given a request by the council to look at the items on their memorandum. I would recommend that we prioritize numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as high priority and just do them, and we could vote on that. I'll make a motion if necessary. Items 6, 7, and 8, I think we should decide if they're a high enough priority. I personally would put on number 6. I would drop number 7, and I think we should discuss number 8. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I will just reiterate that this body, this committee is providing recommendations to council. We're not making any decisions. So, and I agree, that the council has asked us to evaluate these items. Go ahead, Committee Member Vickery.
Used the word packaging. I was afraid that was an inapt word to be using and might be taken to mean something different than I intended. What I intended by it was that we, in fact, consider how people had voted in the past on measures when deciding what measures to put forward. My assumption is, it's not our decision, it'll be the council's decision. My assumption is that the council does not want to put forward proposed measures, changes that will fail. I think the objective is to put forward measures that will pass. This is not a process of just referendum. This is a process of actually making a recommendation and trying to make one that will pass. So I think in the process of doing that, we do need to consider, as many of the speakers have pointed out, what the history has been on particular measures. Now, the problem is that anytime you have more than one item in a ballot measure, there is no way to prove how people voted, which one they voted on. It's also the case that, as pointed out, the council has asked us to study these, and the council hasn't asked us to say whether the specific thing that was voted on in Measure F should be back on the ballot. They've asked us to support an area that might include something that was on the ballot. So I think it's important that people understand that, at least as I see my job, I'm not being asked to put something back on the ballot that failed previously. I'm being asked to study an area and then to come back with a proposal. And I think as I do that, I will try to be informed by what I think I can figure out from the vote on the previous measures.
Thank you. I also just wanted to thank every member of the public who came and spoke. Especially was so pleased to hear, people speaking for the first time at a commission or committee meeting. I'm just really pleased that people are getting involved. And that's one concern that this committee has had is how do we find out what the people are in favor of? And so by coming and speaking at this meeting, really appreciate that. Committee Member Rubino.
Yeah, I think there are some things that I would like dropped, and I don't know the way to discuss that. I'm sort of okay with not making decisions tonight with low, high, medium. I'm okay doing that as well, and I'm okay having the small committees, the little ad hoc committees, discuss them amongst themselves, and then we could come back and then vote that way so that we have more discussion. I think the limitations of the Brown Act are very, they weigh heavily on discussions. Otherwise, we'll be here all night discussing each of these because they're very complicated. And just doing an up or down, like the Roman gladiator fights, I don't think is appropriate.
All right, thank you. Committee Member Olofsson.
Yeah, I have strong opinions on some of these measures just based on prior history, but I'm cognizant that the city council who convened this charter review asked us to look at it. As Member Vickery said, there's a lot we don't know yet, and we do need to investigate it. And our recommendation could be, let's proceed forward, put things before the voters again, or it could be, this has been decided. We see no redeeming value to putting it on again. But we don't have a lot of information. We've heard a lot of good opinions this evening. But I think we need information in order to make a recommendation to the city council, either to drop this or to go forward with it again. So I'm cognizant they said, please look at this. So I think we at least should proceed to put it on the list, at least to look at each of these items that were recommended by the council. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Committee Member Wee.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, tonight, don't feel like I'm going to be prepared to make a drop or a ranking tonight. I really am looking forward to having a discussion with my subcommittee members. So I can really chew through these and think about it and have back and forth much more than we have tonight to do that. And I'd really like to have that ranking and dropping at our next meeting, hopefully the end of April with a tentative meeting. I'd like to make that a certain meeting. So we have some time to chew through this because there wasn't enough time before this meeting to read all those references and think about it and have discussion. So that's my personal preference, is to not have a ranking quite yet, but continue to hear public feedback on everything we're hearing now, and then have in our subcommittee groups chew on this a lot more and think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Vickery.
I also would prefer not to vote tonight on ranking or including and excluding particular items. I do want to say one thing about item 8, the gender neutral language. I have already suggested that I think there's a better way to do that than was done in Measure F. And I am concerned that mixing that issue might be distracting from other other changes that might be proposed. It seems to me that one thing we might consider is whether at some point in time there would be a ballot measure that would purport and honestly do what it purports, which is to make no substantive changes. That it is a redrafting proposal to try to move the language of the charter into more modern language, clearer language, easier to read language that's less likely to lead to litigation. There are a lot of advantages to plainer language. If we would ever consider doing that, that might be the best place to deal with the gender language, rather than in a measure that includes other provisions that do not deal with language.
Thank you. Any other committee members? Yes, Committee Member Olafson.
Not to belabor what our just said, I did look at the Uniform Law Commission, as was suggested a couple of meetings ago, and the recommendation there on gender neutral was so incredibly clear and neutral. I can't imagine improving on it. When I got the information for tonight's meeting and was reading about a singular person who had made some comments, and then in the next sentence said, and they said this. I said, who's they? I mean, that's, if you'll excuse the expression, bastardizing our English language. So I think we would be much better off sticking with what the professionals have created for uniform laws throughout the United States whenever we can. Thank you.
All right. Don't see any other requests to speak. It is, if I could summarize it, it seems like the committee members are not ready for even a straw poll in terms of dropping any of these council recommended items for discussion at this meeting. And I do agree that the value of getting together in the subcommittees and doing deeper dives can really help inform committee members, and at the next meeting, we'll revisit the either dropping particular items or or ranking high, medium, low. All right, shall we move on to the city staff recommended items? So at this time, we will have opportunity for the public to speak on staff recommended items. I believe there were 2 with option for a third to bring back other items at the next meeting.
And I can give a brief overview of those, or I can
Yes.
just take questions. They're pretty straightforward. The Public Works Department and the city manager are recommending for Section 1309 of the charter related to public works contracts. There are alternative methods of project delivery that state law now allows for large public works contracts. We see them sometimes in school districts. School districts are authorized to do this under state law, and you'd see some of the projects at Fremont High School go up pretty quickly. So amending the charter to allow alternatives to our traditional model of public works contracting is something that staff recommends and that several members of the committee were pretty strongly interested in. The second item is a more sort of administrative item. Right now, the city manager has authority to approve settlement of claims up to $50,000. State law, if we want to give the city manager authority to approve claims above $50,000, we actually have to have that authorized in the city charter. The sort of savings or the efficiencies there would be that we, right now, to settle anything above $50,000, we go into closed session with the city council. There can be scheduling issues related to various aspects of litigation and timing with getting the city council to meet. Some of those closed sessions can be long. So the idea with this would just be to authorize the city manager to settle claims somewhere above $50,000. And that's, that kind of limit would be something I think the committee would study. So we're happy to take questions about those two issues. And then I think we may have more in the future, but those were the two sort of top items that the city manager was identified for this meeting.
All right, we have a question from committee member Vickery.
This is just a point of privilege. When we talked about meetings, my recollection is we talked about having meetings that would be 5 to 6:30, and we talked about meetings that would be 6 to 8. I know that city council doesn't seem to have a closing time on their meetings. And I'm just curious for planning purposes, whether that we intend for that to be our approach as well. I'm just noting that we're pretty close to 6:30 right now. And so this is a serious question. Are we planning to have meetings that begin and end at a specific time? Or are we only planning to have a beginning time and then end whenever they end? And I ask that not just for my own planning, but because I would think that would be of use to the public to know how long our meeting is actually going to continue, in part because I remember myself sitting up rather late to watch all of a council meeting and thinking this doesn't seem like a real good way to do things, but that's beside the point. Thank you.
If I could just respond on that. I recall that we had intended for roughly 2-hour meetings. I don't believe we set a firm end time. Staff, can you?
That was a discussion that, because some of the committee members had commitments after the meeting. So that was the discussion of trying to keep it to the 2 hours. We do not put an end date on the agenda. I'm looking at the city clerk.
That is correct.
Yes. So if we do go over, that's sort of a buffer, but obviously it's, up to the committee. But that was the discussion that we started when we started the committee. That was the premise that we were operating under.
All right.
Good.
Sure.
I realize we did not take a vote on this. I understand that, but I do believe if we went back and checked the record, the discussion was a 5 to 6:30, and then for the meetings that started at 6, a 6 to 8. So I think we talked about an hour and a half for the meeting starting at 5 and 2 hours for the meeting starting at 6. I don't recall why we talked about a different length for the different times. I think it had to do with particular schedules that people had, but I'm willing to mark whatever I need to on my calendar. I'm retired. I don't have to get up in the morning and go to work. But I just think it would be good if we could be very clear about that.
Agree. And then as for today, we do have a number of members of the public and some pretty meaty agenda items. So I would expect that we may run over today, but that perhaps we could, perhaps get an end time for future meetings.
We can definitely agendize if that's an item that, the committee wants to discuss at the next meeting, to have an actual vote on the meetings. We can definitely do that for the next meeting. If you want to ask that as at the end of the meeting as sort of direction to staff.
Okay. All right, Committee Member Olafson.
Thank you. Just a question about the staff recommendation for the manager approval over 50K. I want to confirm this would appear on the next council meeting as if whatever amount the city manager approves, whether it's less than 50, more than 50, whatever policy is set up, that appears on the consent calendar, so it's publicly disclosed.
It's a matter of public record, but we don't usually put those settlements on the consent calendar.
Because I see on the city council,
Oh, I think what you're talking about is the claims and bills.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Committee Member Wee. Should be read.
I was waiting for someone to acknowledge me. Thank you. First off, while I have it in my mind, as far as the meeting length, I was the one that proposed the motion based on input from everyone here on our guidance for our meeting dates at the time. And one of the committee members did have a particular need to leave at 6:30. So at one point, but that committee member is no longer on the committee. So, but 2 hours, I think, is a good guidance with some flexibility depending on what happens. Like tonight, I think going longer is fine. But not to midnight, please.
Can I also just add that if we need to stay on the agenda topic, so I think we're veering off on items that are not on the agenda. So if we can get back to the
yes, just trying to do the point of our information there with that other thing. For the amount greater than 50,000, so this is a settlement of claims. Is this a legal claim or is this not a billing thing?
No, a legal claim.
Okay.
So someone sues us for any number of reasons. The $50,000 amount that's been the settlement amount for years and years. And so a lot of times when people sue us now, it's for more than $50,000 and settlements are $50,000 was high at one time for a settlement and it's not so high for a settlement today. I guess is how I would describe that.
Yeah. And is there some thought about, is it 100,000? Is it 1 million? Or what's the ballpark here?
I mean, that would be for the committee to study. Just to give you an idea, the threshold for city council approval for contracts right now is that the city manager approves contracts up to $250,000 and anything over $250,000 is approved by the city council. So that's one kind of guideline, but that number could be up to the committee to recommend. I'd say 1 million would be pretty high.
250,000 would be approximately.
That's our
ballpark.
standard for contracts today.
And is that typical in other cities our size?
I mean, the number varies, but yes, anywhere between 50,000 and 250,000, depending on the size of the city and the issue. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Committee Member Rubino.
Anyway, I have a question. Go ahead. Hi, I think I'm from Missouri. I'm from the Show Me. I am finding real difficulty, I'm sorry, on understanding what this document is, because I would never make a decision on 1-2 with 2 paragraphs of information. And it's just not enough information for me to make any kind of decision other than can I read it? And then, so I don't understand the comments. I don't understand where I need more information to make decisions. And on the second one, greater than $50,000, again, I don't have any data points. This is, how many things do we get? How many claims are there a year? And how many are less than $50,000? Is it 1,700? Is it 1? Is it 6? How many claims are there against the city and what are the amounts? I mean, this is like, in business, I would never make decisions based on this. So I'm like clueless on what to do with this information. So it's just not enough information for me to do anything other than nod my head going, I'm from Missouri.
All right, thank you. So your recommendation is to further study in the
I
subcommittee?
need more information here on all of these things. It's like, I feel like we're on this committee and we've already met a whole bunch of times and we're not making any progress because I don't think we have enough information to make any decisions, even with low, medium, high, because there's not enough information. I mean, it's just, it's a swag. All of them are swags. And based on my information, as a financial person in a bank on loans and stuff, show me the collateral, show me blah, blah, yip, this is like, pulling things out of your ear. Sorry, I don't mean to offend you. It's just not enough information.
All right, committee member Newswanger.
In my opinion, since the staff has asked us to study items B1 and B2, I think we should study them. I do have a question regarding the $50,000. Can that be, in order to not have to do this periodically with charter review committees, can that be changed to a percentage of the city budget or something that would index as time goes on without having to go through the committee?
I think we could probably build some indexing language in. Percentage of the city budget might be challenging, but that's an issue that the committee could study. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member Wee.
Thank you. Regarding, let's see, alternative project delivery methods, along the lines that was brought up earlier, need more information about what those are like, or what are alternative delivery methods?
I mean, this one really gets to many of the comments that the committee itself made when you talked about this section of the charter, that projects are expensive and it's not efficient and things like that. So this would, right now, the charter specifies that we go through a process where a project is designed, and then we go to bid for a contractor, and then we have another contract for a contractor, and then it's built. And these alternative delivery methods that state law authorizes now would allow that process to essentially be a little bit more consolidated. So it promotes various types of efficiencies. And if it was studied, we can bring Public Works in, and they probably have lots of examples they can provide. But those are the types of things that they were looking at and that the committee members commented on. So.
And if I could just add, it's not just efficiency, but also a big financial, a possibility for a big financial on the projects, being able to do it a lot more cost efficient. So again, we could go into detail. The reason why staff added these to the list is, again, for the subcommittee to study them, ask for more questions, get in your group, and if there's additional information, as Melissa said, we could bring in subject matter experts that could actually walk you through a project and an example.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping to have the information so we could, when we do the subcommittee meetings between now and next time, we could have something to look at. I guess, is that in the references? I haven't cross-checked all the references. Do you have a reference to that section or link that we can have more information about this? Yeah, if we get a reference so we know what we're looking at for research for our study. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Committee member Vickery.
This strikes me as one of those areas where having 3 samples from other charters of more modern approaches to public contracting would be very helpful rather than trying to have a general study of public contracting. I don't think there's enough time, at least to educate me about all of the intricacies of public contracting. And so I would propose that we not try to do it that way, but that if this is something where staff is aware of some other language in charters that permits better techniques, better methods, that we start with looking at some specific language.
All right, thank you. Any other committee members with questions before we open to public comment? All right, let's move to public comment on the, oh, that one.
The eclipse. That one.
No, the other one.
Sorry. Can I talk?
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Vickery. That's a great idea. And it's the same thing with, I think a number of cities our size have probably gone through this charter stuff a lot. And I think we need to figure out what are those cities and then take a look at those charters. I think that's brilliant that you said that because, you know, why reinvent the wheel? And I'm sure like Los Angeles County, I mean, these huge counties might have stuff like that. San Diego County, you know, where there's large public works, even Bakersfield, you know, we have huge public works. We can look and, you know, just a perusal of those charters and see what we got. Go fishing and we'll catch a fish.
All right, let's open to public comment on items B1 and 2. Clerk, are there any members of the public in person who would like to speak on this?
No, Vice Chair.
Mhm.
I have 2. I didn't know you wanted to speak on this section. Okay, all 3 sections for you? Okay.
Or possibly.
Thank you. Vice Chair, we have 1 speaker card. Steve,
Thank
please
you.
oppose the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Member Vickery, for bringing up the things about your scheduling. For those of you who haven't attended or fully participated in a CRC before, this is not unusual. I applied and my interview was canceled in 2018. But I attended every one of those meetings. We ran from 7 to 11 very regularly and had discussions at midnight out in the parking lot over by the rabbit hutches. So that's not unusual. These 2 items here, I fully understand what these are. Okay. The first one, I'll say, yes, you should study that. This is very straightforward to those of us who have worked in construction and engineering environments. I myself have acted as my own general contractor many, many times because design, bid, build is what the big firms want you to do. Package, turnkey, just write me a check, job's done. Problem is you don't get the best subcontractors, you don't get the best design, and you don't get the best build schedule. So it takes a little more program management. I've spent a career in engineering and I've spent a career in program management, which is higher than project management. Okay. So I fully support, investigate, breaking apart design, bid, and build. And we can have the starting of the SOG, Sunnyvale Department of Government Efficiency. Okay. So this will be the first step. All right. So definitely, I say, look into that and I fully understand what it is. The number two, that one I will also say, yes, please study. Settlement of claims, this is on a legal side. It's not it's not saying there's a $65,000 bill to do some landscaping and you want to have him approve that on his own. No, this is settlement things. The limits do go up. The indexing, I think, is going to be a little problematic, but maybe there's a way to do it. I will propose that as a participant here and as a voter, that if you were to raise the limit to 75 or 100K, 75K or 100K, I think that's reasonable from there. I think anything beyond that, real iffy, whether it's going to pass or not. And the indexing, I'm not quite sure how you do that, but I think that's reasonable. I've dealt in IEEE standards committees. I've dealt with bylaws. I've dealt with things that have to do with economics. And there does come a point where it isn't a good use of time to gather 10 board members or 6 board members together to say, well, I'm a $1,000 above the limit. Shall we spend 25 person hours deciding this? At some point, you got to trust the person that you hired. 75K or 100K, I think it's fine.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, I believe that is the last in-person speaker wanting to speak on section B.
All right, thank you. Any speakers remote?
Yes, Vice Chair, we have Jen. Jen, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just a couple of comments, and I really liked what Steve said. The young lady who had mentioned knowing how many claims are coming through, how many are settled, et cetera. I would also want that information, so I thought that was a very good comment and something you should kind of find out as background information. And also the comment made from the young gentleman who had mentioned looking at other city charters and seeing what they have. But I would also mention, and this is probably goes without saying, that as you look at those, you would want, of course, the attorney to look at those as well, maybe even before you look at those, and make sure that they're valid or they seem legally binding. So those were the only comments I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the last remote speaker wishing to speak on section B.
All right, thank you. Just open it up to discussion on further discussion. I know we did have some discussion already about these 2 items. Whether to rank them high, medium, low, drop, or move on. Committee member Newswanger.
Well, I think we decided we weren't going to vote on that until later. So I wasn't going to make any comments now.
Yeah. I think when we were talking about the council provided items, but since we're breaking this up into 3 separate categories, this is on the staff recommended items. All right, committee member Wee.
Actually, my earlier comments refer to this whole set, council membered or recommended ones, as well as the staff recommended ones, like the staff ones we've just seen for the first time. I need more information about them and more time to discuss still. I wouldn't be able to make a good recommendation right now. So that's my comment at this point on this section B.
Thank you. Committee member Newswanger.
Well, I've already said this. I think that since the staff recommended it, we should study both items 1 and 2.
Thank you. Committee member Rubino.
Oh, am I on?
You're on.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have problems with buttons. Now I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I think it's fine to put the 2 recommendations into what we study. I'm fine with that, and I can do a motion to that effect. And just throw it in the hopper. because I think they're fine to study. Again, I really think, and I know I'm being cuckoo on this, but possibly not, is if other cities have it in their charter, I wish we had access to that legal LexisNexis, because if you did a LexisNexis research, you could, you could get a table, in a second. No, can't do that? Yeah, because I really think if we look at cities like LA County, Los Angeles, San Diego, counties that have large infrastructure issues, even San Jose, and see if these other cities have them. Because I'm not sure it belongs in the charter versus it belongs in the ordinances. I'm not clear on the differences there. So I need some guidance. Thank you.
Right, Committee Member Olafson.
Yeah, it's an unrelated subject. Been trying to sort out what this all means. I agree we need more information, but I have a question for the staff. We submitted some information on things that the different A, B, and C groups would like to work on, and I haven't got any feedback. And so it sounds like we're just spinning our wheels waiting
That's an
for
item,
information.
if I may interject, item second will address the second item on the agenda, or actually item 3, I apologize, and we'll address that item.
Committee Member Philly.
I would agree that that we should go ahead and look at these issues. But with all of the requests for more information, which is absolutely relevant, I'm just wondering what the expectations would be on our side for when we could actually get more information and sort of understanding what information could be provided that right now, as you sit here, having heard our questions.
The idea was from the beginning is that the group does the research in your subgroups and figures out what you could do the research. You can find out what the topic is, ask questions. If there's anything specific that you need from staff that is already readily available for us to be able to prepare, we could provide that information. But that was the idea why the subgroups were formed, that you could look at all of this as in public information, right? So you would do your own research, you would come up to your recommendations, and then bring it back to the whole committee so that we can, and the public could also be aware of what your research is, what are you proposing, and what is the subgroup recommendation to the full committee, and then the committee takes that full recommendation to the city council.
So that's helpful because I think at least for me to understand that our responsibility for that information is our own within the subcommittees. And so the group that takes on that particular one would need to compile that information in a way that they could then share it back with us. Thank you.
Yes, although with, if there's anything that the subcommittee gets stuck on, or, they can always ask staff, and if that is readily available, then that could save some time too. All right, I'm kind of getting the impression the same as with the grouping of A, that we're not dropping any of these two, and those are going to be moving into further study by the subcommittees. All right, shall we move on to the group C, which is all the rest of the items and topics that this committee has already talked about in previous meetings. Staff, do you have any comment on those?
No comments. These were your comments. So.
Yes. All right, and any committee member questions before we move to the members of the public? Committee member Wee.
This is not exactly a question, but include or something to add to this list, which I did mention, but I didn't saw it called out particularly here, was the consideration of having a transportation commission for the city of Sunnyvale as a possible option, which is, yeah, thank you.
All right, staff, is that something that could be added or?
That could fall under, and I apologize, I'm looking up the item as to which commission or committee could be, is listed in the charter, will be listed in the charter. So that could be included as part of that.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll just move to the final section of the public hearing on this item and move to those in the room first. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please submit a speaker card.
Vice Chair, we have Steve followed by Zachary. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hi. Tim, thanks for bringing that up. I think Transportation Committee might be very good to add in there. On the C1, provisions for diversity statement, native language, I think that may serve a purpose somewhere else, but not in our charter. So I'd recommend that that's low priority. City council qualifications, yes, definitely. You'll have to come up with something, 5 years for council members, 2 years for committees, something in between. Something like that. Legal notices, yeah, study that. Having been on the check writing side or approval side of $700 to $1,000 to $1,200 for a public notice into something that we weren't sure anybody was reading it. I'd love to have a more efficient method that didn't cost $750 or $1,200 to do. Article X, study potential, board and commission things. I would ask why. We've got 5 charter defined ones. They're all very integral to our identity in the city. I could not see supporting taking those out. $200,000 per vote. Let's see. Where do we spend our money? Merit principle, adding different considerations for examining applicants for employment. Yeah, I think that's okay to study that one. That's fine. Pay plan. Yeah, clean up language, no sweat. Number 7, outdated reference to State Employees Retirement Act. Yes, so you can update that. Number 8, study 20-year budget. I think it works great. I've been here nearly 50 years. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I've been involved and listened to 20-year planning. We revisit it every 2 years. So sounds good, leave it in. Number 10, independent audit. Yeah, more information on audits would be good. That would maybe fit into that SOG, what is it? Sunnyvale Office of Government Efficiency. Make sure you get the acronym right, and then we'll figure out how to pronounce it later. Revenue bonds. Make that clearer. Yes, please do. We need to do that. Campaign disclosures, I commented last time. This is essentially California Election Code and California Government Code, of which I've also had to wade through quite a bit. I think you could shorten that down to you shall follow XYZ codes and giving them a URL. The franchises, you know, I understand most things. I don't quite understand why you commented on that. So I need to learn more. That's interesting. I usually understand a little bit more about stuff, but I think that's a good way to move forward on some of these, and I hope you can consider looking at those. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Zachary. Zachary, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Number 2 under C reads, study whether the 30-day residency requirement for city council candidates is appropriate. Shouldn't that read increasing the residency requirement? I would just like to point out, maybe you know where the post office is in 30 days. One of them, at least. I don't understand why this is restricted to council candidates. Boards and commissions should have Sunnyvale residency requirements too. The amount should be a discussion topic.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the final in-person speaker wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you. Are there any remote speakers?
Yes. First up, we have Mei Ling. Mei Ling, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
My name is Mei Ling Stephen. On number 2, section 603. I support the wish that the length of residency requirement should be much longer to reflect that a candidate is vested in the community and has sufficient time to understand people and issues in the context of Sunnyvale. And I agree with the previous speaker that board and commissioners should also have a longer residency requirement than 30 days. But the city council members should have a longer requirement than board and commissions. And also, it's not clear how the residency is verified. So some study into how the residency is to be verified would be necessary. And the verification of residency process might not have to be in the charter, but it should at least be in an ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jen. Jen, you've been unmuted and have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on 2 items. Item number 2, which is the 30-day. Both Zach and Mei Ling made very good comments, and I agree completely with those comments. That 30-day requirement needs to be increased, especially for council members, and the boards and commissions should include some sort of residency requirement as well that's longer than 30 days. I also agree that on item number 8, I agree with Steve in that the budgeting that we currently have, I think that has kept us out of trouble as a city. I've lived here more than 25 years, and I think it has worked well for us. And I think it should remain in place and worthwhile to study, but I definitely it should remain in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that was the final remote speaker wishing to speak on this agenda section.
All right, so that covers the 3 sections. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this item. All right, now any additional discussion from my colleagues on the items that were brought up by the committee? Committee Member Rubino.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the public for being here tonight. I think it's terrific, and please come again.
All right, gathering the similar sentiments of, although no one has said it again in this time, but sentiments of let's get the subcommittees to really delve in and investigate all of these items and come back to the full committee with their recommendations on whether any of them should be dropped after having looked at them in more detail in the subcommittees. All right, I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is 25-0384, discussion of subcommittee assignments, next steps, and deliverables. So the subcommittee assignments, I was able to coordinate with Chair Larson. He's out of town and couldn't be here at this meeting, but we were able to review the feedback that was provided from the staff's polling on what topics different committee members and subcommittees were interested in. So we were able to group items that staff and and the city had recommended, and a few of the items that, that the full committee recommended, and parse those out into different subcommittees. So I'm just going to read what we had decided. So thank you to everyone who responded to staff on the topics that either your subcommittee or you as an individual were interested in delving into and studying more. So subcommittee number 1, as a reminder, we had already identified the people. So we have committee members Vickery, Newswanger, Olafson, and Pine on subcommittee number 1. And for the topics, it's roughly 5 topics for each of the subcommittees, although additional can be parsed out at the next meeting because we weren't able to parse all of them. All right, so subcommittee number 1, we have A1. So that is on city council term and election. Also A3 on vacancies. A8 on gender neutral language. And C2, city council qualifications. So this will be sent to you by staff as well so that you don't have to just watch the video again. All right, so subcommittee number 2 includes Davis, Philly, and we. And we have items A2 on compensation, A4, presiding officer, mayor, A5 on redistricting, A6 regarding regular meetings, and C13 on franchises. So that one includes one of the items that the committee brought up. And then for subcommittee number 3, which includes Rubino, Larson, and Wickham, we have A7, appointive boards and commissions and eligibility for those. B1, contracts on public works. B2, city manager powers and duties. C1, new issues. That's a large conglomeration of topics there. And C4, appointive boards and commissions, which is the other items on that topic. All right, are there any questions about those assignments of the topics? Yes.
Chair Vickham, if I could also add, since the committee didn't take a position on the current list of dropper item, I would also add if maybe for the next meeting, if the committees could get together and really look at the list that was provided and come prepared to discuss some drops, amendments, keep prioritization. I think that would be very helpful to have the discussion at our next meeting.
Yes, and likewise, even though these are committee assignments, there's nothing that would prevent a subcommittee from talking about anything else that's not on their list, right? So, so you're free to do that. It's just, these are the first ones and the ones to start working on first. Are there any questions? Oh, yes. Committee member Vickery.
I do want to be clear about what our charge is. And to start with, I assume you'll send these out again after the meeting, maybe right away. And will a convener be designated so that we can actually have somebody who starts the process of finding a time when we meet?
I think that's one of the items that the chair wanted to remind the group. And there's a few housekeeping items from staff's perspective and also from a, operation mode that we would want, the subcommittees to quickly meet and just have sort of a point of contact that could ask those, if there's any support or any questions from staff, be sort of that point of contact. So we're not getting, emails from 10 different people.
I was simply asking that the vice chair or chair designate one person from each group to be the convener contact. And we don't need to meet to decide who that is. You just tell us, would be my suggestion.
I could name someone just off the cuff here, but the subcommittees would then be able to change who
Oh,
that
of
is.
course.
Right. Okay. All right. I will name one person from each to be the staff kind of communicator.
Well, I was actually getting the committee, the subcommittee together, that there'd be one person who would actually figure out how the four of us can actually meet at a given place and time. That was my immediate concern.
Okay, got it. Committee member Vickery, would you like to be the person for
I would be glad to do that.
subcommittee 1? Thank you so much. All right, for subcommittee 2, committee member Wee, would you be that person? Thank you. And for subcommittee 3, committee member Rubino, would you like to be that person? Thank you.
So if I could, I had a couple. Yeah, they're turning it on. I had a couple more questions. As I understand it, you would like our subcommittee to talk about the 4 designated areas you gave us, and presumably we would come back to the full group at the next meeting, the full committee at the next meeting, with maybe a recommendation whether to continue discussing them or not. And then maybe we would go beyond that with some more substantive ideas about those areas. But I would assume that at a first cut, you would like us to make a recommendation that may obviously be ignored by the rest of the group, but make a recommendation whether or not to keep that in our study process. Would that be correct?
Yes, and also the rationale behind that.
Yeah, right.
Right. And any questions? I'm going to go over like a kind of a template of things to
Oh, okay.
to do.
Oh, well, then I'm asking questions you already
it's
have
okay.
answers to, so I apologize. But the other thing that I'm hearing is that while I would not be inclined, for example, to talk much about the 5 areas assigned to each of the other 2 groups, then you would like us to probably talk about all of the other areas that haven't been assigned and have some thoughts about whether to continue discussing those.
Yes, absolutely. And whether your subcommittee would have the bandwidth to talk about those. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member Wee.
I was wondering whether the subcommittees should submit a written report so that actually be included in the materials for the next meeting, so we have time to read what other people think before we actually come to the meeting and listen to all of it. As a subcommittee report, basically.
Yes, absolutely. I am not sure when to open public comment.
I
and when to
think
go
if
further.
there's any specific questions on the process, I think maybe you can explain the process a little bit more so that also the public could also benefit from what you expect in the deliverables and the process of how we'll gather the information, because that might warrant some public input before you go forward. So maybe if I could just give you the floor and just kind of walk through the whole process, then ask for questions.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so yes, with Chair Larson and I have come up with a format for a template, and it's not the template that you have to use in your subcommittees, but it's a recommendation, and it has a number of topics along the.
If I could, we could bring it up, put it up on the screen so you'll
Yes, please.
see, and then we'll be able to staff will be able to email this to all the committee members afterwards. So again, it's a template that you could use. It's just an example.
Yep. Okay, so this is an example template. This particular tab is on subcommittee number blank deliverables. And the ID number, we will now, this was made before we had the A7 type of designation, which we should definitely use. So you'll be entering the item and topic, the relevant charter article number or section number, then the summary of what the subcommittee interprets this to mean, and then the impact of making a change. What is the problem being solved? What is the nature and degree of public benefit? What is the consequence of not making a change? And then major alternatives to explore. So, with every one of these topics, if there's a dollar limit, what should it be, or what kind of range should it be, and different alternatives to explore. It doesn't have to be, one item. What does the subcommittee think are the different alternatives that should be looked at? Then identifying some key issues, questions, clarifications needed from council. This is really important when we go to council on June 3rd. We want to be able to get their feedback, additional feedback, so that if they come back and say, hey, actually, we don't really want you to look at this particular topic anymore, then you haven't already spent a huge amount of time identifying, and doing all the research. So what are the questions you would like council to give feedback on for that particular topic? And then if you have an initial priority, high, medium, low, that is helpful as well to bring back to the full committee. And I would add a fourth item, which is potentially drop, right? Because we have had that discussion and there are so many items. And then the rationale behind that selected priority, if you say drop, why? If you say it's high priority, why? And then this last column is where the subcommittee can really do additional research in terms of, is this already covered somewhere else? Does it really need to be in the charter because it is in this other policy? So the resources that staff has already provided just in this agenda could go there, right? If there isn't a resource for that particular topic, that is an area where the subcommittee can go deeper and do their own research and find, is this already covered? This may also be a place to research what other cities have done, for example. All right, so again, this is a guideline. It doesn't mean you can't have additional columns or anything like that, but this should be a starting point for the subcommittees. And because we do want the subcommittees to provide feedback before the next meeting and have that information in the next agenda packet, then we will need the format to be in PDF. And how many days before, please?
Yeah, and if I could just clarify, the reason why we need it in a PDF format is because of our Legistar system doesn't really, Excel spreadsheets and Word documents don't work very well, so we need them in PDF. This is the information the subcommittee can share with staff, so we can add it to the agenda, and then it could be discussed, and members of the public could also see what the subcommittees are working on. And so we would need that PDF file a week before the meeting. A week before the next meeting. So our next meeting, for example, our next meeting is the 24th. We would need it by April 16th or 17th at the absolute latest, but that would put a big pressure on our city clerk. So the 16th would be ideal.
All right, and today is the 3rd, so that is not a lot of time to get started, but and then that also brings up the topic of the April 24th meeting, which was a potential meeting. And the chair, and I do feel like there's the need to have that meeting. And if anyone has any, I see some hands raised here, so let's go to Member Rubino.
Could you scroll that back, please, to A? Okay, so one question I want to know is if it's been on the, oh, sorry. Am I okay? Okay, I'm sorry. Can you scroll back? I have to do it on the, so big. Okay, so one thing I'd want to know is if it's been on the ballot before and what the results of the ballot were. I think that would be helpful. And then the other thing I'd like to know, because I'm trying to find it, is do we have a history of the ballot measures and what's passed? And could you distribute that to us, please?
It's already on the website. There's a whole history on the Charter Review Commission webpage.
I missed it.
It's under the documents section of it.
Okay, I missed it. Thank you very much. I'll get it tonight. Thanks.
All right, Committee Member Wee.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the format, can we submit both PDF and Excel and have the Excel also be available? It's just easier to look at in the Excel format. The PDF is just really hard to navigate.
You know, you could have your Excel file and use it when you're looking at it, but just for Legistar, it's very difficult, and we're not able to make the Excel work.
I understand for Legistar, but is there a way for the Excel files also to make it back out along with the PDF to all the committee members? So we'll submit our report in Excel and PDF, and then Legistar can have the PDF version if it can't handle the Excel file attachment. But then the Excel version is just a lot easier to navigate and read from a practical standpoint when you get, otherwise it's just harder to look at and line things up.
Again, because of Brown Act and transparency and you need to be able to be working off the same document. So the PDF would be the document, the source document that would be included in the packet and what the committee would be working off of.
So we'd have to retype everything into Excel from the PDF in order to recreate it to be readable. I mean, to be more manageable.
No, because you would create a PDF from your Excel spreadsheet. We would take the action, and then with whatever action the committee takes, you can go and then update your Excel file.
Okay.
You could also take all of these components and put them in a Word document if that's easier for you. It's certainly easier for our system. We do have these kind of technological restraints that are tricky to deal with. That's why all of the resources had to be linked on a separate sheet for this time. So if it's easier to just take these items and put them in a Word document and that helps your readability, you could do that as well.
The Excel format actually works really well from a readability standpoint. You can scroll side to side, compare things side. But when you move into the PDF format, then you end up going up and down a lot, back and forth. So having both is useful. So PDF for the official publishing, and then have the identical content, but just in a more friendlier, manageable interface. For instance, when we've got police reports, they would be in PDF, which was like unusable by the BPAC, but they would also send us an Excel version, which we then say, oh, now I understand how things lined up. Because it's a big matrix, and it was hard to look at the matrix and be able to read back and forth when you're just in a PDF. So I'm asking for having both formats.
Let's start with PDF, at least for the next meeting, and figure out if there's a different way from staff. We'll take that as an action item.
All right, Committee Member Vickery.
Could you tell me what summary of the subcommittee's interpretation means?
So I think that is, so this was done before we got the agenda, right? And now in today's agenda, it has a summary of the topic, right? And then it also has a staff comment. So both of those are, I think, important to keep in here. And if the subcommittee then, through their research, then they have, maybe a different interpretation of what it means.
Okay. So A1, there's bold type that describes it as alternative voting procedures. And is that what you're talking about being?
Yes, the
Well,
summary.
if, I thought that would be the item topic, so I don't know what the summary is that's different from the item topic.
The topic is just a very brief thing, like it'd be city council term and election.
Okay,
And then the summary is what's in the staff,
got it.
what's in the agenda
Okay.
right now
Okay.
about that.
I have, okay.
Yeah.
Have an idea.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Questions? Committee member Philly?
Assuming that we're agreeing to, or have we agreed to have a meeting on the 24th then? Because that was was not actually scheduled, it was perhaps meeting.
Right. Is there any disagreement to, or any opposition to having the meeting on the April 24th? Committee member Newswinger.
If it's possible to have it at a later date, I could attend. Otherwise, I will not be able to attend. For me, after the 29th.
All right, and then there's May 3rd, I believe, or
That is correct. So right now we have a tentative for April 24th and a confirmed meeting for May 3rd. You're
It would be May 1st.
May 1st. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you.
Yes. It's April, today is April 3rd. That's where I got the 3rd. I apologize.
Committee member Vickery.
I'm willing to meet on April 24, but I wonder if we would actually get more done if we allowed a little more time for the subcommittees to work, given the fact that there's such a short time between April 24 and May 1. So maybe if we had more time to get more work done by the subcommittees, we'd actually be farther ahead.
Yes, and Chair Larson also was concerned with the June 3rd time that we're going to be presenting at council, and that we may need another May meeting. And so, yeah, I mean, the discussion was 3 more meetings, but I understand the difference between the May 24th or the April 24th and the May 1st is not very long. So we could potentially just have make it 2 more meetings, but with an additional meeting in May.
That would definitely be a possibility, is that you don't have the April 24th meeting, keep the May 1st meeting, and then have a second meeting in May.
Right. Committee member Wee?
I really like that proposal. So we have until May 1st to work on, because there's a lot of stuff to cover here. And this like really getting into the meat of what we need to do. That'd be making a much more productive May 1st meeting. And then having another meeting in May, I think is a great idea.
Committee member Vickery?
I think we need to recognize we don't have until April 24th. We have until only maybe April 23rd to get our subcommittee work done in order to have something really to work on May 1.
If the next meeting is on May 1st, what is the date that you would need the PDF versions of the reports?
So let me look at my calendar, but it'd be the week before. So for meetings, the May 1st, it would be April 23rd, at the absolute latest, the 24th, but the 23rd would be ideal. Because we also, again, want to make sure that the public, just as you, have enough time for us to provide a viable agenda and material so that the public's aware of what we're going to be discussing, and that you have also, the full committee has ample time to review the materials.
All right, committee member Newswinger.
I also support having the 2 meetings in May and not having the next one in April. I'm willing to make a motion to that effect at an appropriate time.
All right, staff, do we need a motion on this, or it's a acclamation?
You don't need a meeting, you don't need a motion to cancel the April 24th meeting because it was already labeled as tentative.
Okay.
So you're fine on that. And then staff, we can, between now and then, pull the committee on potential dates. As I mentioned in the beginning, part of it is staff resources, but also this room, the availability of this room. So we can, if that's the direction that the committee wants to take, we will poll the committee and then suggest a date of the extra May meeting.
Okay, is there, I know, Chair Larson did propose that an additional May meeting might be needed, and staff did come back with a couple of dates. Could we pull the group right now?
Yeah, we'd have to pull the whole committee because we do have some absence, people that are not here. So I think it's better served if we do the internal poll with the staff and then let the entire committee know.
Okay. All right, Committee Member Olafson.
Thank you. I concur with my fellow members that we need time. We need the May 1st meeting just so we can get organized among ourselves, do something useful, and get a preliminary report to staff so that we all have a chance to do it. And so I don't think you need a motion. I think you can just make the decision as the chair when the next meeting is.
And Chair Wickham, if I could just maybe kind of bring the conversation back circle, right? We still haven't opened the public comment, so I just want to be cognizant of that.
Yes. All right. Committee Member Rubino, and then we'll go to the public.
Well, I would just suggest we do it May 15th as a placeholder, because that's a Thursday and the room might be available.
Okay, noted. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing on this item. We will take public comment from those in the room first. Please submit a speaker card if you wish to speak. Clerk, are there any members of the public who would wish to speak on this item?
Yes, Vice Chair, we have Steve. Steve, please approach the lectern. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Hello again. First question for Vice Chair Wickham. Would you please put up the subgroups and the names there? That was a document that should have been published for all of the public to see. I didn't write down the notes. I don't know who it is. Tim made a good comment about doing the work here and stuff. I do want to invite all of you again to go back to March 18th, and I'd like you to look at the appropriate agenda item there. I and the public and our council were led to believe that your subcommittees were already formed and were actively working, pedaling hard ahead, and had been so much work already done. Please go watch that and then send me your individual impression. City Clerk knows how to get hold of me. Lots of ways to do it. I'd love to hear from you. Okay. The list you've got there of items to look at, I think that's great. What Vice Chair Wickham and the chair have come up with. I'll just read you some of my things, and they do fit into yours, but they might be slightly different. I had a short description, proposed amendment, the source. I had the source, where to come from. Why is this needed? I think that was covered in one of yours. What's the problem being addressed? Okay. Next was, who is it that benefits? Why are we doing this? Okay. What's the time sensitivity? Must we do it for what we're trying to do here for amendments to be voted on in November of 2026? Or is it not needed till later? Complexity to implement, that's a big deal. Taking the voter requirement, the election things, and reducing this much to follow California Election Code and Government Code, and here's the URLs. That's a real easy condensing, but it may be really hard to do some of your others. So complexity to implement, time to implement. How much effort is it going to take for yourselves and staff to implement something, and what is the value of that you're going to get it in the end? And then the cost to implement it. It's not just the work of paperwork, but if you do something here, does it now cost the city $500,000 more per year to implement that? So certainly look at that. And then final thing I had here was voter sentiment. That's a real hard one to zoom in on. But I'll tell you, your paid polls aren't going to give you the answer. Okay, but you need to find it out. What's the sentiment? I've gone through that. Okay, and I didn't spend $100,000 to do it.
Thank you.
Chair Wickham, if I could, we did go over that list of the assignments very quickly, and the city clerk, if I could ask her to put it up very quickly, just for people who are watching and people in the audience could see.
Vice Chair, going back to public comment, there are no additional speaker cards for this agenda item.
Thank you. And are there any remote speakers wishing to speak on this item?
No, Vice Chair.
All right, thank you. I will close the public hearing. Do we have any further discussion on this topic from the committee members? Yes, Committee Member Vickery.
Just a question. When will we get the template?
Sorry, we will try to email that by tomorrow morning.
Great, thanks.
Committee Member Rubino.
Oh, I have a question on Brown Act with the subcommittees. Could you review that, please?
So you can speak to members of your subcommittee group about these issues, but don't speak to anyone else on the committee outside of a public meeting about it.
So the committee that has 4, how does that work? Or are there still 4 on one committee? Because there's only 10 of us.
The subgroups are less than a quorum of the whole committee. So the individual groups can talk to each other about it, but don't talk to anyone on any other group about it unless you're here in one of our full group meetings.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat
that make
that.
sense?
So I can talk to the other people in my little committee, and then I can't talk to this gentleman over here who's not on my committee about what we talked about in my little committee. And he can't talk to me about what happened in his little committee. Got it? Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Excellent.
And
Thank you
that's
so
the
much.
reason that we're asking for you to submit the materials that your group prepares for the agenda so that then everyone and the members of the public can see what you've been doing in your little groups.
Okay, so one more question on that then. So the file that we give you, so when it's distributed to other people, the other subcommittees, that's exempt from the Brown Act?
It will be published with the agenda, so it'll be available to every member of this committee and members of the public at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'll just reiterate, it's when you're communicating within your own committee and you're sending emails, do not copy the chair or the vice chair if they're not in your committee. But they are in your committee, so, right. And then again, one person from the committee should be designated to be the communication with staff.
So that person might be different than the person you selected this evening to set up the committee meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, we will move on to staff. Did I forget anything in this agenda item?
No, I think you covered everything. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to non-agenda comments, items and comments. The next portion of the agenda is for oral reports and announcements by committee members and staff to share information. Do committee members have any non-agenda items or comments? Committee member Wee.
I was very pleased to see a lot of members of the public at their meeting tonight and making comments. So thank you for attending and making comments.
Thank you. Any other committee members? Yes, committee member Vickery.
For efficiency, may I tell you now that I will be absent in August for the August meeting? I have a son having a wedding ceremony in France, and so I won't be here.
Thank you for letting us know. And you want that excused? Yes. All right. Staff, does staff have any non-agenda items or comments?
I do. I want to comment Committee Member Vickery for having an excellent memory. We did look at the minutes from the first meeting, and we did take a motion to keep the meetings to 2 hours. We did say that the first Thursday of the month would be 5 to 6:30 because, again, some committee members had some prior commitments. And then we said that the other meetings would be from 6 to 8 on the fourth Thursdays of the month. So just wanted to, for the record, you have a great memory. And I think Committee Member Wei also had similar comments.
All right, thank you. And for the record, today's meeting is 2 hours and 42 minutes. And we have reached the end of the agenda. I want to thank everyone for your participation in tonight's meeting. The subcommittees have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to your reports at the May 1st meeting. And this meeting is now adjourned at 7:42 p.m.